Presenter, David Mobley.
Hello, my name is David Mobley, and my topic is addressing the national debt through the Department of Government Efficiency. The United States of America was established on July 4th, 1776. Every year, Americans proudly celebrate this holiday and wonder of freedom. In 1776, it was necessary for America to break free of the bondage of British rule in order to gain self-governance, which is a mode of government that was in stark contrast to the British system of hierarchy. Well, this is a reality 250 years ago. History always has the possibility of repeating itself, especially if citizens are not paying attention to the actions of elected officials, particularly in the area of money and finance. Because of this, the United States government has an arm of financial accountability called the Department of Government Efficiency, commonly referred to as DOGE. DOGE is responsible for holding the government accountable for its spending practices. Unfortunately, the national debt in the United States is out of control. The reason the national debt is so high is because the government keeps overspending through major deficits, is not saving enough money to help reduce the debt, and is borrowing money from foreign countries like China, Japan, UK, and Canada. It's not bad to borrow or spend money, but if the debt continues to rise and continues to grow more out of control, then this could lead to major economic downfall, and America could lose major domestic investors. Charles Spurgeon famously said, "Money is a good servant, but a bad master." What did this famous theologian mean when he said this? To simplify, he meant, when money is properly managed, it can be used as a helpful tool. However, when money, or in this case, lack of money, which is known as debt, becomes reality, then one's focuses began to shift away from God and His Word. Matthew 6:24 explains that those who follow Christ and His principles cannot serve both God and money. Benjamin Franklin says it's easy to go to sleep without eating dinner than it is to wake up in the morning in debt. Thomas Jefferson calls excess debt a most fearful evil. With all this being said, America should respect the money with which it has been given by God, and America must stop ignoring and adding to the debt burden it is facing. The other major issue DOGE is facing is people are disagreeing with DOGE for political reasons. For example, Elon Musk was the former head of DOGE, but people thought he was benefiting himself because he's worth billions of dollars. Another major obstacle DOGE is facing is Democrats who are wholeheartedly against Trump do not like the actions of DOGE because Trump and the Republicans are the ones making the major decisions which allow DOGE to make major reductions to government spending. At the end of the day, it does not matter who taxpayers like or dislike. What matters most is that the debt problem gets paid proper attention to ensure the financial freedom which was established in 1776. The national debt in the United States of America is out of control. As of August of 2025, the national debt was $35.1 trillion US dollars. According to the United States Department of Treasury, that amount has already increased to $38 trillion US dollars. And by April of 2026, the national debt is projected to be near $40 trillion US dollars. The reason America is increasingly incurring a debt is because our government has an imbalance of spending and revenue. Experts agree this is dangerous and unsustainable for our country. What would happen in someone's family if one family member made financial decisions in such an irresponsible manner and continued to rack up debt at an amount that would be hard to repay? The consequences of a family member living beyond their financial means on a daily basis is isolated and limited, compared to the United States living beyond their means on a daily basis, which holds a national and global significance. How big of a spending problem does the United States have? 25 years ago, the national debt was $5 trillion US dollars, which means that over the past 25 years, there has been a $35.1 trillion increase. Some examples of this unnecessary spending would be the federal government in Washington, D.C. wasting $15.7 billion on empty office space. According to an article in the Carolina Journal, the federal government owns 9,962 buildings of vacant office space throughout the country. And with an increase of telework, it is most likely that these facilities would never be used in the near future. With this problem costing $15 billion. Another one is the National Science Foundation wasting $300,000 on bird watching groups. Another one is the the Department of Interior in Las Vegas wasting $30 million on a 30-court pickleball complex. Another one is the United States Department of Agriculture wasting $20 million on foreign fertilizing rights. The purpose of the Department of Government Efficiency is to eliminate wasteful and fraudulent spending. If parts of our government do not want to change, then the future of the United States is in jeopardy. According to the book Doge Effect by Emanuel Ford Knox, the government underestimates that people are paying attention. According to the Michigan Law Review, Courts Govern America, West Virginia Supreme Court Justice of Officials, Richard Neely, concludes that Congress often avoids lawmaking responsibility out of self-serving reasons and out of fear of political consequences. Neely also points out that there are many levels of our government that do not represent the best of public interest. The primary example of this, or a most recent example of this, is the 2025 government shutdown. The reason that this happened is because the Democrats and Republicans failed to solve a budget dispute. In order to get the 60 votes needed in the Senate, at least 7 Democrats were needed to vote in order to approve the bill. But according to the news, the Democrats refused to vote until Republicans agreed on extending tax credits on health insurance. Once again, it is everyday Americans who suffer because of the inefficient and irresponsible ways Democrats and Republicans solve problems that are important to the people. It's everyday Americans who suffer. When the government overspends, real impacts are felt, including small businesses shutting down due to tax rates increasing, potholes not being repaved, and inefficient funds for public safety. An example of our government overspending, and the United States government has a history of relying on outdated technology and resources. An example of this would be Iron Mountain. Iron Mountain is a mine in Boyers, Pennsylvania that has 400 million retirement records stored in it, and the problem is they're only able to process 100,000 per month, at a cost of $30 million per year. But Bill Meaney, CEO of Iron Mountain, welcomes Doge, and over the years, Doge has helped them gain more access to modern technology so that these retirement papers can be processed quicker. The United States government also has a bad habit of operating in an inefficient and wasteful manner. Have you ever tried to contact a government agency and gotten a quick, straightforward answer? This is a common frustration for many Americans across the United States. An example of an agency that has not been operating in an efficient manner would be the IRS. The budget for the IRS has increased, the employment rate for the IRS has increased, but the performance rate has decreased according to the Gallup organization. Another one is the SSA, also known as the Social Security Administration. Social Security currently holds $2.9 trillion in the trust fund, which is decreasing. And by 2034, it is projected to be diminished, which means that they are only able to pay 21% of their investors, and 61% of the elderly and disabled rely on this for half of their income. How can our government get away with such bad and gross overspending? The main cause is lack of accountability with our government systems. It's up to us as American people to bring attention and accountability to our broken problem. It's time for action. It's time for Doge. Over the years, our government systems has not changed its wasteful and inefficient ways. The reason being is because over the years, our government system has not changed. Reason being is because the government is benefiting from overspending using taxpayer money. Warren Buffett, billionaire, investor, and financial expert, has come up with a solution. He came up with a law that prevents legislature from re-election unless annual deficit is below gross domestic production. Would you want to change something that's benefiting you? It has been over 24 years since our government has had a balanced budget. Proverbs 22:7, God's word states that the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is a slave to the lender. Dave Ramsey explains that borrowing money can lead to large amounts of debt, and sometimes you don't even realize it. This and the bigger picture of $37 trillion must guide our hearts and minds to make better financial decisions for not just us, but for our future generations. One of our largest lenders is China. Being a slave to one of our largest enemies is neither wise nor consistent with God's word. In fact, it is actually your children and grandchildren who are being put at risk. Another disturbing fact is that the United States government has borrowed $2.4 trillion from Social Security, which means that promises made to senior adults may not be kept. Proverbs 14:23 tells us that mere talk tends only to poverty. While talking about the problem is a start, it's time for action. It's time for Doge. The reason being, using value-added tax is to fix the debt problem is not the solution. Value-added tax is an indirect consumption for tax on goods and services. But most people don't want to raise taxes higher than it already is because it's going to be harder for citizens to save money. When tax rates are high enough, it's not right to punish the American citizens for the mistakes that our government has made. Adding value on tax items such as alcohol, cigarettes, and tobacco is not the solution. Reason being is that it's burdening low-income households. And not only that, this can lead to black market sales, and our government can lead to our government trying to take over personal behavior. Employees at a small and large business get a fair amount of taxes taken from their paycheck. This is called a W-2 form. Employees work hard, and so do employers. Raising taxes causes hardships to businesses themselves because they can't pay their employees enough for them to be able to benefit from their labor. And the employer can't save enough money, thus causing damage. It's time for action. It's time for Doge. Thank you. I would now like to open the floor for questions from the judges.
I had never heard Warren Buffett's suggestion about limiting re-election and whatnot. Of course, it would be Congress who has to put that into action, I would guess. So,
Right.
But are you aware of any congressman actually presenting that bill or taking it seriously?
Not that I'm aware of. I just heard that he recommended it, and politicians are benefiting from it for that reason, for re-election and for a short-term economic boost. That's why we overspend. So we just have to think about our future generations over long term. But I don't think it's come into play. No, sir. Yes, sir.
So, David, thank you. In your research about Doge, how exactly do they try to catch inefficiencies or corruption?
So I'm going to tell you, one of my assistant baseball coaches told me a story because he works for the government in some sort of way and is connected with Mike Johnson and stuff. So basically it was something with tech in the colleges. They tried to do something with beetles, and in their title, it was a certain word that in the search engine that they upload, like what they wanted, that agency, what they want to do with it. It detects that and it roots that out automatically because Doge, it's all over online and stuff like that. And they're I'm trying to think of a way to put this. Anything that has a title of like 3 certain words that he told me, I can't remember off the top of my head, but they root that out because they think that it's not relevant and it's not worth spending our money on. And they ended up getting their money back and saying we didn't mean to do this, but since the title had that certain word in it, it was rooted out.
Gotcha. So, when they were doing all that, a year and a half ago or whatever, it seemed like they were going to save a lot of money. And then in the last few years, within the last few months, a guy named Nick Shirley, he's a reporter, found like radical corruption in Minnesota with daycares, in California with hospice. It was like hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm just kind of curious why Doge didn't catch that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I'm not really sure. I didn't come across that in my research, that specific issue, but I can research that and get back to you and figure it out.
Appreciate it.
So.
David,
Yes, sir.
the $40 trillion that the debt's closing in on is just like a staggering amount. But if I think about when you're my age, if it keeps going at this rate, I mean, what's it going to be? 90 trillion, 100
sir.
trillion? I mean, at some point, we got to wake up, whether it's the citizens, the Congress, the president. What's going to ever get their attention? What's going to make us stop this?
At this point, it's up to us as people because, they can't, no one's going to change something that's benefiting themselves. And if politicians don't want to do the right thing, then we can through voting and morality and paying attention to who's going into office and who's going to be our governor, and take that seriously because it does have effect. Tax rates increase, making it harder for people to save money. There's a lot more.
Thank you.
David, I'm always struck by the things that come out that we spend money on. And one of the things you mentioned in your paper was $20 million on fertilizing rights in foreign countries. What is that?
I'm not entirely sure.
It sounds like something they shouldn't be spending
Right.
money on, right? Shouldn't be spending our money on it. That's what we need to keep remembering. They're spending our money. Social Security, you talked about that being promises made to senior adults.
Right.
With our money.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
money we've paid into it. What's the most interesting thing you discovered in your research that you think will affect you? Because most young people your age don't think about the national debt. You don't think about any debt, right? But you're about to be out in the real world. So what did you research that you think is going to stick with you the most as you move forward in life?
Definitely pay attention to the world and what's not follow the world necessary, but pay attention to what's going on and be aware of the people that are out there and the greed that people have when they're in our office and stuff like that. And it also taught me about how borrowing money and I like how it taught me how borrowing money and spending money works and how there's an importance to borrowing money but also being able to pay that money back. So I think that's the most important.
Good.
So David, Doge was controversial a year and a half ago when we were hearing so much about it in the news. What do you remember made it so controversial? Because it's something like Doge is responsible for holding the government accountable for its spending practices. Shouldn't everybody be in agreement that that's something that should be done? That shouldn't be something that anybody would say, no, we don't need the government to be held accountable for their spending practices. We should not know what they do and they should spend it however they want. I don't really think anybody would say that, but it was super controversial. Why was that?
It was controversial because
I'm thinking I'm thinking of the person they put in charge of it.
okay.
But
Elon
anyway,
Musk.
like I said, I didn't know what you thought about that. So
Yes.
why would Doge be controversial to begin with?
Because Elon Musk was being put in charge of it, and Trump was trying to look for someone to run it. But like I said in my paper, Elon Musk was a billionaire, and people thought that he was benefiting himself. When in reality, I do get why people would take that as like, oh, yeah, he's just trying to make more money when he's already got it. But at the same time, we have to look at the bigger issue and look at the bigger problem. and make sure that our country is not going to economically fall.
David, you mentioned China as being a person who holds a lot of our debt. Who else are we in debt to? Who are we in debt to?
Japan, Canada, China, Japan, UK, and Canada. China, Japan, UK, and Canada. That's the ones I know off the top of my head that are the top.
Okay, and so the whole idea of Doge is a relatively new thing. I mean,
Yes, sir.
just the last couple of years. In your approximation, has Doge been effective?
Yes, sir. It has. Sometimes I'll go like a couple of months ago when I was still writing my paper. I was looking on Doge.gov, and it came up with it had all of these things that the government has rooted out and has been saving billions of dollars. Just I can't name them. I don't remember them, but I do remember that that's a source that you can go on and you can find all the things that they've done so far.
And I guess the last thing that's on my mind is that, I think some good things you cited about things that save thousands of dollars or even save millions of dollars, but when you're talking about trillions, it's
Right.
kind of just like a drop in the ocean. And so it seems like there needs to be some systemic kind of change, like something more fundamental. Any thoughts on that or ideas? Could you solve our problem for us?
Like, are you asking for like solutions? Like,
Yes.
okay. Basically, our government, we need to have rules set in place for budgeting, because if we don't have that, then our government is just going to continue to overspend, and tax rates are going to continue to increase because our government is constantly looking for more money to keep spending. And then, anybody have any questions from the audience? Honey.
Did you enjoy this topic?
Yes, I enjoyed it greatly. I chose it because I wanted to learn more about economics and how the world works with money and things of that nature.
I bet that was depressing.
That's funny.
But true.
Well, if no one has any more questions, thank you for your time.